Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you here in Pune. I so look forward to this trip for months now, and it's a dream come true. I just love to spend time with the Indian devotees. That's what it boils down to. And tonight, our focus is a topic that was very much in our topic this weekend. We had a retreat out at Watunde on setting goals for the new year. We talked about success a lot, and I'd like to talk about it a little bit more because this is what we're all aiming for in our lives, and different ones of us are looking for different kinds of success outwardly, but we're all looking for the ultimate success inwardly. And so it's helpful to stand back a bit and to look at, you might say, the examples we have in front of us. And I don't know about you, but certainly those of you who knew Swami Kriyananda also, I'm sure, cannot help but think of him when the topic of success comes up. I don't know anybody who has accomplished as much as he did in that lifetime, and yet it was never his point. It was never the success he was looking for. It was all steps on the way to accomplishing the success he was looking for, which was God realization, which is what we're all after. And yet, we can't just leap to that place. It would be nice if we could, and in theory we can, but in practicality, we have a few impediments to overcome on our way. But when I think of the ingredients of how we're going to be successful in whatever it is we're seeking, whether it's outward success, which it comes with being human. I mean, we have to take care of things in our lives, and we can have little successes or large successes, but there are things we have to do, even if they are just sort of on the road to the real success we're looking for. But I always remember just being in Swamiji's presence, how you could really get a feeling for where success comes from, because he was just such an incredible reservoir of energy, living energy, not just gasoline in the tank, but energy expressing in every moment, even the moments when he was just resting. I would get tired being around him when he was resting, because just being around him was a challenge to bring your level of energy up to the level of energy he was operating on all the time. We think of putting out spurts of energy, right? And it is important to put out spurts of energy, and yet, and he would sometimes, but it was sort of an extra spurt, because he was constantly putting out energy to be even just awake, even just engaged in whatever was happening, even if his engagement was not a physical participation, just being present, being totally involved. And I remember once at a satsang, where someone asked him, Swami, how do you get all that energy? How can you live at that level of energy that you live at? And he was perfectly aware of the subtext of the question, which is, tell us we don't have to do that, won't you? But his answer was, look, I've just been doing this a lot longer than you have. And you too will live at this level of energy as you've been doing this for a longer period. Because when I would first be around him, I found it discouraging. Because the thought of leaping to that level of energy, I might as well try to, leap to the top of a tall mountain. It was just unthinkable. But then I realized that, he started out just like we do. He was living at a particular level of energy, but through applying himself constantly, that became the norm, and it wouldn't be such a stretch to jump up a little bit to a higher level and make that the norm. Make that's where he lived all the time. And then takes another step up to a higher level. And we can live at that level. And just up and up and up. And this is what he was essentially challenging us to do. If we would succeed in what we're really looking for in life, we have to live at that higher level of energy. It doesn't come, we're not going to fall into, we're not going to slide downhill into cosmic consciousness. Much as we'd like to, that's not going to happen. We are going to have to lift ourselves with the Guru's help to that higher level. And how is the Guru going to help? He's not going to sort of pour energy into us necessarily, but he's going to share his magnetism with us. He's going to share an understanding of what it is that we can do to come to a higher level, not just of energy, that's the beginning, but a higher level of consciousness, because it does take a higher level of energy to reach that higher level of consciousness that we're all looking for. But it's not the kind of energy that comes from, that's needed for lifting heavy objects or just having a lot of stamina in a long bicycle ride or something like that. It's that subtler energy. But nevertheless, we have to come to the place where we can put out that energy, and not just as a have to, but as a want to, as enjoying living at a higher level of energy. And that's really an important distinction to keep in mind, that if we look at this as work, if we look at this as obligation, as this great chore, it's not going to be very appealing. But if we learn to live at that level of energy and realize, as Master said, that within every particle of the life force, within every lifetron, as he put it, is the consciousness of divine joy. And that in the act of putting out more energy, the opportunity is there to tune into more joy, because that joy is pouring through us as we put out more energy. And it's up to us whether we're going to tune into that or just see it as work we need to do. And if all we see it as is work that we need to do, it's going to be very hard to stay on the spiritual path for a long time, because it's not going to be fun. Somebody once asked Swami, what's the purpose of Ananda? He said, it's to have fun. He says, but fun is joy, and joy is God. And that's what we're looking for. So to take ourselves to that level, it's really important to look at the level of joy in whatever we're doing. As Nayaswami Haridas always says, you look at the joy meter. Where's the reading? If the joy meter needle is going down, time to pump it up. Time to really use, because joy is a magnet for the energy that we need more of. It's not sort of, oh, I have to have a lot of energy and I have to have joy. It is a magnet that is going to draw to us the energy and the initiative that's required to rise to the next level of consciousness in ourselves, where we feel more of God's presence, where we feel more of the Guru's blessing, which are there all the time, waiting for us to live at the level where they are. As Swami would often say, God's not going to come down to our level, take us by the nape of the neck and lift us up. We have to lift ourselves to a higher level, not all the way to cosmic consciousness. It doesn't take that much to draw a divine response. But we can't hang out where, let's face it, oftentimes we'd like to hang out, which is at a relatively low level of energy, and say, come on, God, give me a break. Come here and help me out. We have to lift ourselves up to receive. And we do that with joy. We do that with putting energy, not just forcing it, not just pushing it into whatever we're doing, but wholeheartedly just giving ourselves completely to it. And one of the things that I was pondering as I was thinking about this topic of success is, of course, what is it? Okay? I don't think it's getting a PhD in applied mathematics from Stanford University, which people seem to read that a lot, I think just for amusement's sake. Sort of like, why? Why would anybody do that? Well, I didn't have anything better to do, I guess. But really, what is, okay, so I get one success. I get credit for one success in my life, which a meaningless success, but it's a success. But what is success? Can we only have that experience by achieving something outwardly? And of course, that's not what success is about at all. True success is really something inward. And one of the beauties of the spiritual life is to see the potential in outward failure for it to be success. Not just because we're wanting to paint a happy face on an outward failure, but if we learn something important in an outward failure, that can be more successful than if we had succeeded outwardly. Because what is the success we're seeking? The thing that I've found most practical on the whole spiritual path since I came to Ananda, and I know many of you would share this opinion, that I haven't seen anything as more practical than the simple idea of expansion versus contraction. Because expansion of consciousness, expansion of caring, expansion of awareness, this is what is going to take us out of ego consciousness. That's the success we're all looking for. Anything we do that results in an expansion, a sense of expansion, and the beautiful thing is, we feel it. This is not some esoteric thing. We feel it right here in the heart. When you do the right thing, even though it wasn't any fun. In fact, maybe it was really, really hard and unpleasant, but you do the right thing, you know the feeling. Outwardly, you're going, ugh. Inwardly, you're going, ah. Because you feel that sense of expansion. And on the contrary, that when we close in upon ourselves, Someone asked a question in the Yoga Sutras class that we've been doing. What about how to get rid of pride in knowledge, pride in accomplishment? We just think for a moment of pride. Where do you feel it? How does it feel? Squeezed really small. It's contraction. And when we can look for, in our daily lives, opportunities to feel the sense of expansion, and it doesn't have to be massive. A simple, kind word to someone who seems to be in need of it. Simple, kind thought, even if it's not convenient to say anything to the person. Praying for other people. And the simple act of not thinking about me, or rather thinking about expanding out of that, gives us the feeling in the heart of being not just larger, freer. Because that's what we're all looking for, is a sense of freedom. And when we do the hard thing, when we, it gives a better feeling than when we just succeed outwardly. Okay, I finished the project, hallelujah, I'm done, I had a success. That feeling can't compare with the feeling of expansion when we get away from the sense of I, me, and mine. It's so simple. The spiritual path is so simple. We think, oh, I have to go find God wherever God is. No, we just have to get out of who we've been, or who we've thought we were, and God is there. Because when we get out of that, there's no place else to go. I always love to reflect on the first Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, that yoga is the neutralization of the whirlpools of feeling, the likes and dislikes. And my first impression of that was, okay, this is what I have to do to sort of clear the arena for the spiritual path, for the spiritual quest, is I have to get beyond all my likes and dislikes. And I was so amazed when I came to understand, no, that's the whole path. You do that, you're done. That's the real success, which of course tells us a little bit about how challenging it is to do that. But to look at these little steps in breaking out of smallness, and whatever it takes, whatever is going on outwardly, we do our best. Absolutely, we do our best. We don't get out of delusion by not doing our best. But whatever we do outwardly, if we can bring that inward as the real job here, the real joy here is the inward aspect of this, and it's about getting free. Then it starts to be easier to connect with that whole idea of this is just all about having fun. This is all about having joy, because that sense of freedom brings joy. And we can feel it. It's not an abstract concept. And we can share it. And guess what? Of course, when we share it, what happens? Not only does it help other people, we expand even more. This is what, in a way, what Ananda is all about. It is feeling Ananda as an organizational work. It's about feeling the joy within us, but then sharing it, whether in some overt way or some quiet way or some invisible way, just to give to other people something of what we feel, and in the process, we get to feel more of it. And we get into a positive feedback loop of, if I feel more of it, I feel like sharing more of it, which makes me feel more of it, which makes me feel like sharing more of it. And it comes to a place where we feel more and more joy all the time. And those of you remember Swamiji, toward the end of his life, he was just in joy all the time because he'd been sharing it his whole life. That was really all he was really trying to do in all of his teaching, all of his books, all of his music, all of his projects. It was just finding ways to share divine joy with other people, because in that he was serving Master. And in serving Master, more joy, because he was able to receive more of Master's infinite joy, unlimited supply. And that's what we can do also. It's when we just think of, not just this is me trying to tune into joy, this is me trying to feel Swamiji's joy, the joy that Swamiji was feeling, this joy that Master was channeling into this world in quantities that I'm sure we cannot even come close to comprehending. But if we can touch into even a little bit of that and share it with other people, that's the real success. Because that takes us out of ego consciousness into divine consciousness. And it's such a simple thing. You sort of wonder, I sort of wonder, why don't I do more of this? Well, we're all learning to do more of this on a more consistent basis. But that's just a very simple way of looking at the spiritual path. It's that path of freedom, that path of more and more joy flowing through us into this world, perhaps to specific other people, but perhaps into the world generally. It doesn't matter, because it's still taking us to a place of greater freedom, greater joy, and greater ability to bring more of that into this joy-starved world. We are living in a time where it's hard. It's really hard, and it might not be hard for most of us or many of us in this room, but it's hard for an awful lot of people in this world. Really, really hard. And this world the masters need help with this. The masters are there trying to channel joy into this world, but they need instruments. And our opportunity for the big success in our lives is not even something we're doing so much as allowing the joy of the masters to flow through us and to help in some way that we'll never know. We'll never know the effect of being instruments for the masters, being instruments for divine joy, but it doesn't matter, because we get the feeling of freedom, or at least more freedom, more and more freedom, until we come to the point where we don't just feel more freedom, we feel an absolute freedom, because this is where we're all going. The state of absolute freedom that I think probably many of us in this room can barely imagine what that's like. But if you have taken up Master's recommendation to memorize his poem, Samadhi, and repeat it every day. And if you haven't done this, I really, really urge you to do it. It's not hard. You memorize a little bit of it one day, do that for a couple days, then you add the next segment, and the next segment, and the next segment, until you just really get into the rhythm of that, and you start to get a sense, oh, that is what freedom is like. I want that. As it ends, a tiny bubble of laughter, I've become the sea of mirth itself. To acquaint ourselves in whatever way we can, just through our own power of visualization, to acquaint ourselves with that infinite state of, as Master put it, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. Through that poem, through repetition of that poem, repetition of it won't take us into that bliss, but it can prepare us. It can give us the motivation to do what it will take to have more and more of that in our lives and to share more and more of that with other people so that we can all get free, or at least freer, and live more and more in God's joy. That's what this is all about. That is the success that we're all looking for. God bless you.